Welcome you friends to the online session on 6 burn-down drafts and how to interpret the ground reality. The team, today I'm believing that simple things that make lot of difference on the ground. Okay, so burn-down charts, they provide the X-ray of team's execution. So if you see a burn-down graph of a team, you can actually understand how the team is progressing, so that you can actually derive many meanings out of burn-down graph, and you can understand the interpretation. You interpret it and you identify certain cues, and basing these cues, you can actually alert the team so that the team can be on the progressive path. For example, if a team provides a burn down graph on the completion of the sprint day, that means the entire sprint execution during the 10 days of a sprint, let's say it's a 2-week sprint, at the end of 2 weeks, if you see the burn down graph, it can provide many cues about the team progress. It can talk about impediments. It can talk about the ability of the team's in efficiency in terms of effectively planning the sprint. It talks about the soft aspect is the team is having the required commitment to meet the sprint goal or not. So if you look at the burn down graph, one, it talks about whether the team is showing enough commitment to reach the sprint goal or not. It talks about whether the design or the design of the sprint story, user story, is proper or not. Whether the teams are doing proper analysis on the sprint beginning day or not. It talks about what is the fate of impediments and how they are impacting the team progress. So it talks many parameters by just looking the burn down graph. So in this session, we are going to see 6 burn down graphs and see what it is speaking to us. So using these 6 graphs, we not only analyze the sprint burn down, but also using these 6 cases, we will be understanding the capability of interpreting any other burn down charts. That means if you know how to interpret these 6 burn down graphs, you will be equipped with enough knowledge, enough capability to interpret any burn down chart. So all these 6 burn down charts are going to be as 6 case studies for you. Okay, in this session, we are going to talk about how to draw burn down chart. Just for the beginners, I wanted to present to you what will be on the y-axis of burn down graph, what will be on the x-axis of the burn down graph, and what units we should take for sprint, what units we should take for a release. That's number one. That's the beginning. And then we will take 6 different burn down graphs, and then we will analyze what the burn down graphs are talking to us. With this, let me get into the first theme, that's called how to draw a burn down graph. Okay, so I'm going to share the first burn down graph. Okay, so if you see here, friends, on the burn down graph, generally it is a pattern of how the remaining workload is trending. For example, if you see, let me say here, you see here, it is basically how the remaining work is trending. Okay, if you take a burn down graph in a sprint, okay, on the x-axis you will have the time units, which is the sprint days. Generally, if we take 2-week sprint, it will have 10 days, first day, second day, third day, likewise 10 days. That's why the sprint days will be on the x-axis. And the remaining hours, because the work can be either in terms of remaining hours or in terms of remaining story points. These are remaining story points, right? So the remaining hours will be on the y-axis. Friends, I ask many professionals, what will be on the x-axis of burn down graph? What will be on the y-axis of burn down graph? 90% of the people will not tell this. 10% of the people will tell, and out of the people who tell what will be the sprint, what will be on the x-axis and what will be on the y-axis, again 90% will not use the word remaining. So the remaining work units is what it will be there on the y-axis. So on the y-axis, remaining hours. For example, if a team has taken up 300 hours worth of work on the sprint planning, now 300 hours is what they have to burn. That means 300 hours worth of work is remaining on the beginning day. Now on the first day, you will, so basically how do we draw ideal line? Ideal line means, okay, the number of hours to be completed at the beginning of the day, 300, and on the 10th day, you simply straight away draw the line. This is the ideal line. Ideal line it is. That means ideally we should be progressing like this. That means ideally the remaining hours should be burned, should be reduced in these increments. But what happens is this red line, remaining work, this is the actual line, actual work trend. So what happens is on the first day of the sprint, okay, on the first day of the sprint, you will say, boss, how much work is still remaining? So basis on how much work is remaining in the first day, you plot on it. Similarly, you ask the second day, how much hours of work is remaining on the second day? How much work of the work is remaining on third day? So likewise, the actual remaining hours that are remaining on the respective days will be taken and it will be plotted. So the remaining work trend, this is the actual remaining hours. The red bar shows, the red color curve shows the actual remaining hours. The green bar talks about the ideal line, right? So what happens is, this is what it is. I mean, how the trend of remaining workload is reducing day after day. That is what is burn down graph talks about. Okay, now this is the burn down graph, okay, where the team has committed for 300 hours worth of work, and ultimately on the 10th day they're able to complete the work. Okay, it's a happy story. Now some people will say, right, you know what, I wanted to have story points on the y-axis. Usually these are not the people who are realistic on execution, right? So let's say 30 story points, it may not be 300, 30 story points. If they wanted to burn, ideally to meeting the definition of done, all the stories will be completed on the last day. If you see, right, people may say in very efficient teams, they may say, look, I want to define stories at a fundamental level wherein each story can be completed within 2 days or 1 day. Then, story point makes sense. But generally on the ground, what I've seen is people, they tend to complete the work on the last day. So due to their efficiency, due to their maturity in the teams, on the Scrum teams, or they may not be self-organized teams, they may not be very efficient teams, or they may not be equipped with the proper environment wherein they can complete their story, or they may deploy in productions. That kind of environment may not be there. In 90% scenarios, all the stories you tend to burn in terms of story points on the last day. So the remaining work trend appears like this, if you really see, right? Story points versus sprint days if you take. That is why I am suggesting during the sprint execution, the burn down graph should be remaining hours versus remaining sprint days. So the remaining hours will keep reducing. So tracking the remaining hours will make more sense. Okay, this is as far as within the sprint is concerned. But you know what? You wanted to take advantage of both burn down within sprint and burn down at the release level. Then what I'm suggesting is, now if you are going for burn down within sprint, take remaining hours on the y-axis. And for the release, you take story points, right? So remaining hours on the y-axis, for example, if you see here within the sprint, the burn down graph is talking about how much remaining hours are reducing day after day. So if you see on the x-axis, it's sprint day, that is first day of the sprint, second day of the sprint, third day of the sprint, fourth day of the sprint, fifth day of sprint. So day after day, how much remaining, the remaining work, how it is reducing day after day. Ideally, the remaining hours should be 0 on the last day because team has signed up for 300 hours worth of work. So I suggest we have burn down graph where the remaining hours will be on the y-axis during sprint execution. Whereas to track the release burn down, right? You have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, whatever it is. Okay, however sprint you have within release. It can be 6 sprints, it can be 5 sprints, or it can be 10 sprints, whatever it is. Let's have sprint numbers on the x-axis and story points on the y-axis. So it always makes sense at the end of the sprint 1, how many story points are burned. At the end of sprint 2, how many story points the team has burned. So likewise, I suggest at this sprint level, within sprint, right, have sprint days on the x-axis, remaining hours on the y-axis. But whereas to track a total product progress, okay, total product progress, it may be released, it may be across, and it may span across multiple releases, right? You wanted to see how the product backlog is coming down over a period of 10 sprints. Then having the trend across sprints in terms of how many story points we are burning, it makes a lot of sense. So friends, what I have covered so far? I have covered so far, right? What is the genesis behind the burn down graph? Okay, burn down graph is actually it tracks the remaining workload against time units. If you wanted to have the burn down graph at burn down graph within sprint, I suggest track remaining hours versus sprint days. If you are tracking the product backlog burn down across various sprints, okay, it may span across multiple releases as well, then story points on y-axis and x-axis sprint numbers, it will give you a better dispersion and it give you proper tracking. Okay, so this is what is the genesis of the burn down graph. Okay, now let me share the other whiteboard where I wanted to tell different burn down graphs. Okay. Okay. See, friends, I am actually providing you one burn down graph. Okay. So this is a burn down graph. Okay. You have come across this burn down graph within a sprint, right? So let's see here. Now, what it talks about? It talks about, on the y-axis, 300 hours worth of work the team has taken. And we wanted to make it 0 by 10th day of the sprint. Because a sprint consists of 2 weeks, let us suppose, and 2 weeks means 10 working days. So that is why 10 working days are here. And this is the ideal line. So 300 hours to here. And then the red line is the actual remaining hours, as I have discussed. Now, what is that it talks about? Okay, so you can say, okay, team has completed the remaining hour by 10th day. It's a happy story. Okay, that's not the point, friends. It talks more number of inferences. Okay, the first thing is the team has stretched towards end of the sprint to complete their goal. See, look at here, the trend. It talks about like this. The remaining hours are more, and they made it 0 on the last day. So they stretched on the last towards the last. This is the stretch, because if you see here, this much work should be remaining, but this is what the work that is remaining. Here it is, the work remaining is more here, but ultimately towards the last 3 days, the team has stretched. Okay, that is first thing. Okay, the second thing is, it is possible that the impediments during initial days might have blocked the team to make enough progress. Okay, see friends, what I'm telling, if you see here, okay, just 1 second. So the initial days, just 1 second, friends. Okay, so in the initial days, the impediments are more. Okay, in the initial days, the impediments are more. Because of that, the team has not able to complete the expected work. Of course, I expect it's the ideal line, but it's possible that initially the impediments are more and they did not get solved, and because of which they are not able to make enough progress. And third possibility is that some of the tasks that must have taken more hours than estimated, right? So they must have taken more work than estimated. And fourth one, it is possible that more number of tasks have been added during the sprint. For example, if you see why the trend is coming like this, probably because the team must have added more tasks, or some of the existing tasks must have taken more time, or the impediments must not have been resolved on time. So the Scrum Master and the external environment, they are responsible. External context is responsible for not solving the impediments on time. And then it is possible that the analysis were not done properly. For example, if certain stories have taken more hours than expected, or if certain tasks are not identified during the sprint planning, that means the analysis is not done properly. That means the sprint planning part 2, where team meets and analyze each story and they split down each story into tasks, that is not done properly. Or maybe 1 or 2 people must have taken lead while designing or splitting the story into tasks, but not all people must have been involved in terms of contributing to sprint tasks. They must be thinking, okay, anyway, this story will not come to me. It will go to some other person. Why should I, interfere? Okay, they will figure it out. But ultimately, it happens so that it has come to me. So that is not the purpose of sprint planning, right? In sprint planning part 2, whether the user story is assigned to me or to other member, that is different. We all need to volunteer whether each story is divided into proper tasks, whether all the required tasks are identified or not, whether the tasks are estimated properly or not, and also the task should be sized in such a way that they can be closed. Each task should be closed within a day at the maximum. You don't want to have a task that span across 24 hours unless it is a very special task. You wanted to make sure that one task is planned to get completed within a day. So that such kind of granularity you want to have. See, I have come across certain teams wherein people say, look, it is not possible to define the task such that a task can be closed within a day. Yeah, so if you dig deeper, your efficiency lies in splitting the task into fundamental level. If you are able to define tasks at the fundamental level such that they can be completed within a day, that means you're efficient, right? So probably the task definition is not done properly. So it talks many things. Or impediments are not solved, or more number of tasks must be added, or existing tasks must have taken more time, or the sprint planning did not happen properly, or impediments took more time. This is on the negative side. Positive side is the team has stretched and make the goal completed by the final day, right? So that means the team is having the commitment. Team is having the commitment to close the sprint goal. That means they take certain sprint goal, whatever it takes, they're able to close it. That's a good thing. That means they have a right bonding. They're collaborating well. So these many aspects, this graph is talking. Okay, so let's go and talk about the other second graph. Okay, I'm going to talk about second graph. Okay, so friends, this is the second graph it is talking about. So what is this talk about? Okay, this is what the trend is. Okay, let me see the trend. Okay, so the task is that, the team till first 3 days, their remaining work is not coming down. Now suddenly there is a change. They're able to complete it. And then they are able to progress well. What does this graph talks about? It talks about key things, friends. Let me say here. Okay. For the first 3 days, there must be real blockers. There are the real blockers. The team could not complete the work. So if you think positively, the real blockers were there, and these real blockers are not able to make the team to progress. So because of that, they're not able to complete the remaining work, or they're completing the planned work, but the new tasks were identified. Because of this, even though on the planned task they're able to complete the work, however, because of the new task identification, the remaining work may be same. So what does this mean? This means the remaining work is consistent because on the sprint planning day, the task identification is not done properly. That means more number of tasks were identified, unfolded, detected during the first 3 days of the sprint. Now the question is why? Why did it happen? Why people could not able to identify all the required tasks on the sprint planning day itself? If the team is not able to, foresee what kind of tasks are required to complete their sprint payload on the sprint planning day, there is a problem with their analytical capability. Do we have a proper subject matter expertise, or people are trained properly or not? All these questions are coming. For example, if there are impediments that really blocked them, that means they are free for the first 3 days. They could not do anything. For example, I come across certain situations wherein, people's, VPN access or the system itself is not up, right? There's a problem in accessing the environment. So the work has not come down. Okay. Then on what basis you completed suddenly? What have you done? What magic you have done? So people may say, okay, my sprint has started on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, I worked, and so I completed. Oh, you stretched. Because of this, you are able to do that. Okay. So it talks about why this sudden trend. Is it that you have underestimated that, or is it that you have slept for the first 3 days and then started working on it? That means if that is a negative sense where people have slept for the first 3 days and then on third day they brought it down, that means they have overestimated the effort. So that they have actually taken first 6 days, or from third day to 10th day, 7 days work only they planned. First 3 days work, they did not plan. There's a problem. So if it is so that they are really impacted with impediments and they have worked during Saturday and Sunday, that means they have great commitment. They wanted to spend their personal time to make sure the team doesn't go, the team goal is not going to get impacted. That's great. That is a positive sign. The team is very much committed. Even though 2 days of time got wasted, on third day, they're able to make it up. They have great bonding. They have great commitment. Okay. Or it may so happen that they're completing their planned tasks, but new tasks are getting added in their course, because of which overall remaining effort is remaining same. That means there's a problem with the analysis. So if you see, for the first 3 days, there must be real blockers that has literally stuck the team. There exists no progress. That's how it shows. Or the team must have identified new tasks during execution that kept their remaining hours not changing in the initial 3 days. So we really need to look at the analysis of the stories during sprint planning. So did they do analysis properly or not? Or it could be that team did not work for the first 3 days and started working on the third day onwards. That means there's a problem. They're misutilizing the trust that we are giving to them, right? So they're just working for 7 days, not for 10 days. If that is so, there is a dangerous trend. We should spot it. Okay. They immediately brought the progress to the expected. This means there may be probability the team must have overestimated simplistic tasks. A simple task, they must have given more time. So on third day, they brought it down. Later on, now, but if you see here, this trend is okay, but this trend is not okay. It talks many messages to us, my friends. Why this is horizontal? Is it because we have identified new tasks? Then there's a problem with sprint planning. Is it because you are stuck with the environment and Saturday and Sunday you are worked to make sure that third day, for example, if the sprint starts on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and by the time they come on Monday, there's a good progress, or so then that means they probably must have stretched a lot. So we don't encourage that, because we can't have, we don't want people to work during their extra hours, because if they consistently do that, it leads to team fatigue, team frustration, and ultimately it leads to resignations. So we don't want people to work extra hours consistently, because that leads to negative impacts in the long run. So we have to work on it. And the fourth one is, it's so that, they must have, estimated more hours for simple tasks, that third day they just spent so-and-so and they completed the remaining hours. It may so happen that they probably must have done some work in the last sprint itself, and on the third day they just added the remaining finishing touches. That means they're actually taking closure. Then there's a problem. They should tell it upfront, saying that for this sprint goal, for these user stories, some amount of work already I have done in the past sprint. They should tell honestly. So the Scrum values, the Agile values are at stake, right? It's not about somehow meeting the goal. It's about we should meet the goal consistently in a healthy way by respecting the values of Agile. So it talks a lot, my friend. It talks a lot. Okay. So I'm going to the third case study, which is, okay, I'm going to third case study, which is talking about other pattern. Okay. Look at this pattern, my friend. Look at this pattern. Okay. Look at this pattern, right? What it talks about. This pattern talks about, okay. So this is the green line and the red line is coming down here and then going up. So what does this mean? They are able to complete the remaining work much faster. Why? It is maybe possible that, the team must have overestimated. In reality, that many hours may not be required. Or the team must have identified common reuse between stories. So they developed it the same they are using for other stories that are required for the sprint, because of which the remaining hours are reducing. Good. If they are able to leverage the reuse, that is good, but that has to be identified during sprint planning. Why they could not do that on the sprint planning, right? Whatever collaboration they are doing during sprint planning, why they could not do that on sprint planning? Because during sprint, you are collaborating, you're able to identifying the reuse, that's good. But on sprint planning, why you did not do that? So that means you were not conscious, you were not attentive, or you were not engaging, interactive during sprint and planning, where as part of part 2 of sprint planning, you all will come together, discuss what it takes to make the story completed, technically what tasks are required. All of us need to understand, all of us need to contribute. And if there is a reuse, you should be able to spot it. Now you have not done it, but however you have done it during the sprint, that's great. So that is one possibility. The other possibility is, some of the stories the product owner must have canceled it, right? So there is a situation saying that product owner says, boss, this second story number 3, 4, 5, I don't require. So that means out of 10 stories, 3 stories are not required, 7 stories are required. So the remaining hours are coming down. But however, on 4th day, the product owner has come and said, look, on the first day, I canceled 3 hours, 3 stories, but now I'm adding another 3 stories now. That means ideally, as per agile format, the product owner should freeze stories on the sprint beginning day. So what is this new game? He takes away 3 stories and he adds 3 stories during the sprint. It is against the format and principle, the working rhythm of agile. It's not accepted. Okay, so we have to give some feedback to product owner. Product owner, you can't delete stories, you can't add stories during the sprint, right? So the multiple interpretations. So some of the critical tasks were overestimated so much that they took literally half the time in reality. Problem with estimation. That is one possibility. It's so that, some of the stories were canceled by the product owner here and added the work here. So some new stories got added on the 4th day. Okay. And the 4th one is, and ideally, there is a big jolt to the team. If you see here, team was given a jolt in the first 4 days, but they are able to manage the turbulence. Friends, it's not that, always we criticize the team. It is about they are able to manage the turbulence during the sprint, right? The big turbulence has caused in the first 4 days, but they're able to meet their sprint goal. Hats off to them, right? So this is what it talks. It talks about why stories got cancelled, why the tasks were underestimated, why the stories got added during the sprint. How can I prevent this kind of pattern going forward? Yeah, so this is what it is. Okay, so let me go and talk about the next pattern, right? So next pattern, now 4th pattern I'm going to talk about. Okay. See, friends, look at this sprint pattern, right? So if you see here, the pattern here, right? What is happening here? The remaining hours are coming down, not at the expected pace. On the final day, they came down. Why? What's happening? It's so that, the team could not complete. Basically, there were certain impediments till last day. So because of the impediment, certain QA tasks must not have been completed. But the team were intelligent not to waste their effort. Whatever that is at their command, they're able to close all the work. As soon as the impediment was closed on the 10th day, suddenly, they brought it down to 0. It may so happen that, you may be waiting on certain reviews, and you expect that, unless a review is done, I can't close this task, because the review may give you more amount of review observations. So you may think that the remaining hours are more and I can't reduce it till the review is done, right? So what are you doing? What you're doing is, the reviews were done, but the reviews, they did not result in any rework for you. They say, whatever you have done is great. So that's great. So what the team is doing, even though there are impediments or dependencies, they are able to do everything right that could actually bring the sprint goal to the 0 on the final day. That could be one reason. Third one is, stories must have been cancelled. For example, the team must have worked till here. There are 4 stories pending, because for those 4 stories, they say the story was the story remaining out is more. So I am in a situation, I'm not able to complete the goal. The product owner said, no, those stories are not required. They're cancelled. They're not required for the product backlog. That means the stories got cancelled. And because of which, until 9th day, they're in a bad shape. On 10th day, they're able to complete. They're able to make it to 0, right? So most probably, because it has coming to 10th day and then coming like this, so most possibly the stories must have been cancelled on the last day. But something interesting must have happened, my friends. Something is interesting must have happened. So that is the reason why, this kind of a pattern is there. So we are very much interested to see this. Okay. So this can be the interpretation of this particular thing. This is the 4th scenario. Let me go and talk about, okay, the next scenario. Okay. So 5th scenario I'm going to talk about. Okay. See, friends, look at this pattern, right? This pattern is the both ideal line and the remaining hours or exactly on the line? What do you think about it? So I always ask this question to the professionals. They say, yeah, it's good. It's good that, the green line and the ideal line and the actual remaining line are exactly progressing on the same spot. So friends, I'm telling you, I'm very happy to see at least the data is telling that, the team is burning the hours exactly on the required pace. They have come, they have estimated properly. They are working at the required pace, and they know how much to close every day, how much to complete every day, and they're going at the same pace. So it's all good. But behind the scenes, friends, they may be working on the repetitive tasks, right? So because they're working on repetitive tasks, they know what tasks take how much time, or probably the team is long living teams. That means the team must have been very mature, a repetitive task, then it's okay. But often, friends, this is not reality. Even in cricket, if you see the expected runs per over versus the actual runs per over, if they're going exactly like this, there is something fishy here. It is something superficial, my friends. Often, I have seen such kind of graphs with some teams, and some of the teams which maintain this kind of a trend, suddenly they turn into red. I'm telling you, they are pasting a good picture for us, and suddenly green gets turned to red. This is not a right ideal way. Expected versus actual, there should be some deviation. If they're going exactly on this, there must be some problem, or the team must be very, very mature teams. They must be working on a repetitive task, or they must be adding certain buffers to their existing task, so that, and they also are clever in terms of how much they have to meet every day, so they are planning efficiently. But 20%, I can say these teams are mature, great, all things, repetitive tasks, all those things. But 80%, they may be giving a superficial imaginary picture to us. Please watch out. A green situation may turn into red immediately. Okay, so anytime it can add. Okay, this is the fifth scenario that I'm talking. Okay, the sixth scenario that I wanted to tell here is this. Look out this, right? Look out this particular scenario. The scenario is like this, right? They have taken 300 hours, right? And they have not progressed for the first 5 days, and suddenly the work has come down to zero. What does this mean? That means there were impediments for the first 5 days. Literally, such impediments the team could not complete even 1 hour of work. That means literally the impediments are blocked. The impediments can be, the system is not available. The environment is not available, or the stories are not. They have taken into the sprint and they don't know what to do in their stories, or the technology may be new, or they may have to do certain research before they actually get into those stories. So they have not done sprint planning properly, or impediments are impacting. On the 5th day, the product owner said, look guys, whatever stories that we have prioritized for this sprint, they are not needed. I'm canceling this sprint. So team must have been blocked with impediments for the first 5 days. On the last day, the story must have been cancelled. All the stories must have been cancelled. So thus, the sprint must have been cancelled by the product owner. Right, friends? So this is what it talks about. Okay. So what I wanted to talk here, right, is, let me close the whiteboard and tell you. So friends, I want to tell you what we have learned. We have learned by observing the pattern of burn down graph, you basically derive insights about the team's capability of doing proper design and analysis of user stories on the sprint planning day. Number one, whether the tasks are getting added to the sprint backlog during the sprint, new tasks, or existing tasks are taking more time than expected, or the impediments are not getting resolved, or the user stories are removed or added during the sprint, or the sixth one is whether the product owner is canceling the sprint by saying the stories are not needed. So these are the different cues you can get by just looking at the sprint burn down graph. Okay, you can apply the same for release burn down as well, or product backlog burn down as well, wherein you can keep the story points on the y-axis, and on the x-axis you can put sprint numbers. But when it comes to sprint, I suggest keep the remaining hours within a sprint, keep it on the y-axis. On the x-axis, you put sprint days: sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4. Sorry, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day. I repeat, when it comes to tracking the burn down graph within sprint, on the x-axis, it should be the days: day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, of till day 10, if you think it is a 2-week sprint. Number one. Number two, if it is a release burn down, now on the x-axis keep the sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 like this. On the y-axis, when it comes to sprint burn down, keep it the remaining hours. When it comes to product backlog burn down, keep story points. So once you see the pattern, the ideal line versus the actual remaining workload, you can derive many cues. So it is no more just burn down graph. It is about you are getting different cues, different insights, different interpretations that you can derive how team is progressing. And if you are equipped with this kind of insights, you can actually contribute for the team's better tomorrow, right? So friends, I also wanted to tell you, certain times you may not resort to usage of burn down. Burn down chart may not be needed in some of the contexts, but those are special contexts. We can talk it later, but mostly the sprint burn down chart or release burn down chart, it provides very interesting insights, and it's an artifact that comes very handy. And this is something that is not provided during waterfall execution days. It has come out only during agile execution, agile projects only. So make use of it and help the team to take better decisions for better tomorrow. With this, I come to end of this session, and I thank your interest to learn, and I wish to bring more value add sessions in future. Thank you.